Happy to take any questions, Naveen, if you have.
Yeah, sure, Sanjay.
Should I stop this presentation now?
Yeah, that'll be better, Sanjay, so that you can come full screen and answer people's questions.
Sure.
I would request people to now start posting your questions. There's been a lot of commentary and a lot of Q&A among yourselves. For the first couple of minutes, I'm going to be asking only investment related questions. I request all of you to ask any investment related questions. And then after about 10 minutes, you can start asking sector specific questions so that, we have a flow to what we're asking, Sanjay, and I don't do, I don't kind of take it out of bounds. So Sanjay, I think a couple of things. We were having an interesting conversation. A whole group of people were discussing about MSME, what they need to do. You were of the opinion that startups should just go and pick up an MSME license. Can you just put some more clarity on what you were trying to say?
So what I could understand, see, there is no word startup in the Atmanirbhar presentation, right? In the package, we don't have anything about specific for startups. Mm-hmm. But if you look into the definition of MSME, which you can understand across, most of the startups will fall across into this segment. While we are deciphering, saying that how banks will work, the guidance are getting evolved. As a startup, proactive, there is no harm in terms of losing away the opportunity to getting registered as an MSME. One thing which it can help across is going to always, one thing which I understand very clearly is when you are selling into any corporates, you are supposed to pay in some specific period, and that's a huge advantage if you have an MSME license. So at least your payments are secured across. So you don't have anything to lose across in terms of getting this license. Yes, the clarity in terms of how the package will be deployed, how the money will flow. There is a lot of money which has been allocated in funds of funds. Now, if a fund of fund or a daughter fund, which is going to get funded or created across using this money, maybe in a month or 2 months time, and there is a requirement saying that, you need an MSME license to avail this funding, right? Just go ahead and just do this MSME license. It doesn't harm you anything. It's only going to help you, right? So just go across and do the needful. See, it is as simple as that. The way I see across is more knowledge is always going to be a power to you. So get this thing, right? Indian government is pushing, is doling out things. Try to take advantage in best capabilities what you can.
That's a very, very interesting thought, Sanjay. I think all the entrepreneurs, I guess you guys please go share this within your founding teams and your advisors. And like Sanjay has advised, I think take a look at it. If the Indian government is looking at you as MSMEs, why not? Ride the wave. The next interesting bit which came up, Sanjay, was on this China policy of India. How is that going to affect the FDI inflows?
So it is not saying that it is banned. It is said across that this money which is going to come across as an FDI needs a permission. So as it is in India, everybody knows how to build and take permission, right? So it is not saying that the whole thing is banned across. It is just trying to protect across Indian companies from a hostile takeover. So if it is a genuine investments which are going to happen across, in fact, I have seen so many VCs across which are using dollar route to invest into Indian companies while they are a Chinese VC fund. So the money is coming via dollar. It is not coming via the Chinese straight investing through yen and coming into India.
Okay. Sanjay, there's been another interesting question right up your alley. Sanjay Agarwal is asking, can you explain Safe Notes?
Sure. So iSafe Notes, it is called India Simple Agreement for Future Equity. What we have created is at an early stage, we saw across time to invest and money into the founder's bank was taking at least 3 to 6 months, right? So you sign a term sheet, the closure takes anywhere around 3 months, 4 months time legally, getting all the documents validated, going through the ROC process, and finally money getting into the bank, getting all the shareholders to sign. It was tough. Legal costs were very high. It was cumbersome. So what we at 100x did across, and in fact, my colleague and partner at 100x, Yagnesh Changrachka, who has architected the iSafe node, he has well written across that this is a very simplified way of closing a transaction, right? And anything where you agree upon an investment proposal saying that I want to invest, let's say 20 lakhs into a startup, you don't discuss into the valuations. You defer that at the price round where there is data, where there is enough value creation and somebody is writing a larger check. So if you want to put in a small check, just use SafeNode to close the transaction, right? It is like over-the-counter transaction. In shareholder agreement, typically you will need all the shareholders to sign that one document. In SafeNode, each one, so founder gives that note, and each note is issued to individual shareholders. So money starts coming into the bank and founders can start using it. So the power is now tilted to the founder's back. And there are no, typically shareholder agreements, a lot of rights are given across. At each stage, you don't need rights, no board seat, no veto powers, right? So a lot of simplicity which is brought in. And this is happening around the world, right? And this is first time in India we have brought this. In fact, we have, Naveen, just to share across, we have actually created this open source. Over 100 plus startups have raised money outside of 100x portfolio, have been benefited. We have seen so many emails, social media posts where people are thanking us, creating this open source, saying that we will raise money through iSafe. They download the document, use it, no legal cost. It's a template. And please join us to look at our YouTube channels at 100x. Yagnesh is just my colleague and CFO. He's just posting iSafe tutorial, and that would give you a lot of insights.
Excellent. So folks, look out for Yagnesh's tutorial. He's going to be doing one on iSafe, and let's try and see if we could do one on the TIE platform as well.
Sure, please.
Yeah. Then I'm looking at a few questions, Sanjay, and I think let me just take a step back and ask you an overarching question, which basically comes down to this. What is your view and thesis on to investment, and how do you pick one versus the other? What's your process, Sanjay? How do you go about it? What has made you so successful?
So I think if I were to say that I know how to pick winners, then it would be I would be fooling myself. Winners are created by markets. So I don't think so. So I had 2 unicorns in my portfolio. And a good amount of, I think, 16 odd companies as an exit at various levels. So we have been, for myself, it has been very rewarding journey. Now, coming to the success side of it, it is only the filters you apply across. These are the companies you don't want to invest. Okay. Right? And it is just a method of elimination. And within that, the left out set, which you have, you end up trying to then select the best out of it. So at 100x, we have a very simple investment thesis. So we look at very large market size. Second, we look at founders' right to win, why they should be winning across. Third, we look at the business model strength, why this business model, does it have a path to profitability? Fourth, it is the unfair advantage, right? What is the moat they have? And fifth, we look at, conviction that at least the exit has to be 20x returns, right? If there is no value creation, then we don't invest into a profitable, kind of a regular business. We want a highly scalable business which grows rapidly in an exponential manner. So that's where we look at, exit potential while when we invest, saying that can this startup generate that kind of exit value? So in nutshell, these are the 5 things which we look at. But on the back of the mind, when we are talking across, whenever a founder is pitching their, idea or their pitch deck with various ideas. So whenever we are looking at, and this is my Baniya Dimag, right, which we talk across, okay, when I see across, large value proposition, what is the market size? इसमें पैसा बनेगा या नहीं बनेगा. Secondly, when we see across the team, their credential, honesty, are these people who can make me money, right? Is there money to be made? Are these people who can make me money? And lastly, valuations, terms of investment, financials, how much money I can make. So 3 things. Is there money to be made? Are these people who can make me money? How much money I can make? So that's how, you would look at it.
And what about the personality type of the founder? How much does that play a role?
Huge. So there are quite a lot of, in fact, I had written a blog about the kind of founders you should avoid across. So there are a lot of, for example, Superman founders who believe that single-handedly they can run a company, they are Superman, they can do everything, right? So these are the founders you should avoid. There are founders who believe it's like a boy in a costume, right? Just out of college kid, and they claim themselves as a CEO, MD, have no understanding of finance, just out of college kid, a tech geek. So there are, perfectionist founders who never release a product, who will keep on building the product, kind of stuff. So there is, read my blog. It is a very interesting way all the founders have been classified in terms of how do you look at each of these founders.
Thanks, Sanjay. They'll definitely read your blog. So folks, I see a lot of questions on how much do they invest. 100x VC, it's 25 lakhs to 1 crore. Something which is interesting that Sanjay told me beginning of prior to coming live was that in fact now even later stage companies have been approaching to pick up that check size, not necessarily early stage companies. Next question, Sanjay, is somebody's asking us a question of, do you think pre-revenue stage startups will get investment during these times?
Absolutely. So we classify at 100x 3 stages of companies. One, when we invest across, is this only a product company? Second is this a product plus user? Third is product user plus revenues. So all these 3 companies, so there have been, in our class 1 also, I think at least 30% of our companies didn't have revenues, just had a product, and we invested into them.
Excellent.
In fact, no product and no user, just a product. I mean, no user and no revenue, just product, and still we invested.
Excellent. Okay, now I think, guys, I'm going to go on to all the, the sector related questions that you've all been asking. And I think the first sector that is coming up again and again, Sanjay, is EdTech. Your views on EdTech. How are you going to choose an EdTech company? What do you have to say about that?
So EdTech is going to be huge in demand. It's a great business to be in right now. A lot of EdTech companies will get a lot of future rounds of funding and later stage fundings also, right? This is going to be one of the darling sectors, which I would say across, very hot for VC investment. But metrics or the bar has risen high, very high. The kind of innovation which is being expected is huge and phenomenal. So just doing mere saying that I am going to do an online classes or training or just have a content, it may not fly across. There has to be a full stack opportunity which needs to be showcased, what kind of roadmap it is going to go across. And one of the things which is coming up very starkly is while governments across the globe are talking across local, right? Use Indian, use Swadeshi, which is in India, or even across the globe, everybody wants to develop their internal economy. But within the venture capital industry, everybody is looking this as a global phenomenon. This is going to accelerate global businesses. Today, everybody has now got accustomed to buying things online. Huge consumer reprogramming has happened. Today, enterprises also are depending and saying that let's buy on SaaS. Nobody wants an on-premise software. Business is just going to go global. So even in the EdTech side, anybody who's thinking global business, right? It's not about saying that can I help across my kids in the next building and do a hyperlocal. It's all going to be a global business, global content, global reach, which is going to be interesting.
Thanks, Sanjay, for that. I think there was a leading question on if schools are going to be ever there in the future and what's the future of schools.
Schools are going to be there. There is no doubt. See, school gives a huge advantage for parents to leave kids with somebody else. See, today the trouble at home is parents are sticking with the children all along. While, yes, the work is happening from home, it is becoming difficult. So there is going to be a social requirement. The school also serves a social purpose. Besides education, the kids actually have to be left across with other individuals who will also get trained across under those teachers, right? So these are formative years. So school will continue. There is no doubt that school will not continue.
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, the next question is on one of your favorite sectors. What do you see the growth of SaaS companies?
I think SaaS is going to boom. So the way I see across is India, in VCs in India, every time we used to talk about SaaS, we would like to push our companies to sell globally. That is going to get accelerated, no doubt. But beyond that, with this COVID, disruption which has happened, we are seeing emergence of SMB market. This SMB market, SOHO market, which was not existing. They were not buying software. They were not investing in SaaS software. They were not automating things. Today, small accounting softwares are going online, right? It's just phenomenal the way things are changing across. In fact, one of our startup portfolio companies, in fact, two, let me mention across, called Raseed Book. They were doing across cash memo, converting cash memo, small shops into these businesses. They in fact went live across into a couple of geographies like Jalandhar district and stuff. Every shop is using them for deliveries, right? And making their shop on mobile. Now all things are getting digital, right? Suddenly this shop, which was only doing physical sales, a small shop, is becoming a digital shop, right? And helping across go online. One of our companies, Finline, which is helping across into Mudra loans, MSME loans, due to this Atmanirbhar package, huge upside with their loan documentation.
Somewhere when you started about the second one, we lost you. So if you could kind of please continue with that.
Sure. So the way I was in the SMB space in India, so India is a domestic market has opened up. So as previously as an investor, we used to push our SaaS companies to go out and sell in dollars and sell outside India. India itself as a market is now emerging across with SaaS, with SMBs who are adopting, technology like never before. So one of our companies called Nourish, which is helping across training institutes, coaching, or individual trainers, right, sell their courses online. So how Shopify helps across to build e-commerce stores, this company helps across individuals to create their own training academies. In fact, Tide Delhi Institute is on Nourish.
Okay.
So this kind of SaaS companies are emerging and serving a lot of the local needs, helping them to move to the next level. So this example, what I'm trying to share across is SaaS companies which are helping small businesses go online is going to be the next wave which we will see in India. In India is filled with lots and lots of SMB shops, be it across SMB businesses. So all these MSMEs so-called will adopt technology in coming days. So it's a huge market for SaaS companies in India itself.
Got it. The next session, I think, or the next sector that people were asking was on tech. What is your view on property tech?
See, real estate tech is going to be tough play. Right now, as it is, real estate is not a favored sector because it's a large capex investment. But anything which is going to be helping across, buyers understand the new business, how it can be done across. So, for example, let's say there is you have got co-working spaces, which has been in fashion, right? But can you convert this into educational spaces? Like today at home, I can't study because there are so many people, right? I need a space where I can study as a library. Now, can you convert your co-working space into those kind of businesses which are serving a need, right? Today, for students working with small homes in cities, it is tough.
Yep.
So how do you make co-working spaces convert? So you need to find that right problem area in the current times and create a business around it. Those are the places where you will see across. You cannot continue the business as usual. It has to be, so every business which is pitching right now or getting traction has shown themselves with a pre-COVID, how they were, post-COVID, how they have pivoted. And every business is impacted. So you need to have a slide, which is, this is how you were doing pre-COVID, this is how you are doing post-COVID.
Excellent. And that's an excellent idea on the co-working spaces. We can actually increase the education infrastructure of the company.
Absolutely. And there are, see, today small homes in Mumbai, especially from the density where we are, we need to leverage so much real estate which is created for all the students, and people will happily pay price for number of hours. And in fact, they can create across or run online exams. They can become an online examination centers.
Absolutely. Going back to the library days in a way, somewhere.
Absolutely.
So then we've got a question from Madhuri. He's asking your opinion on the healthcare industry.
Healthcare industry, this is like, I wouldn't like to say, but these are your best days. I mean, everything which is in wellness, safety, sanitization, health is going to fly off. Yeah. But business fundamentals will be required. Nobody is going to write the checks blindly. Anything which is going to take long term, like for example, a medical device, which takes 3 to 5 years before it really sees the light of the day, those will be taking a backseat. It would not see immediate traction across because typical CE, FDA approvals take time. It's a long-term investments. Where anything which is immediately, as I mentioned always in my talks, there is something which is called vitamins, which has a impact, but on a long-term basis, and some things which is painkillers. So if you are developing a painkiller in healthcare, you will see a lot of immediate attention from VCs saying that this is something which will fly off the shelf immediately, and people would like to solve the problem immediately. So if you need to choose your space with your understanding.
So it's a story of painkiller versus vitamin. What do you want to be?
Yes, the vitamins are great and is needed. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not needed, but those businesses take long time to develop, right? And it's a long patience, huge amount of faith which needs to be built up before you get into it.
Thanks, Sanjay. So a question from Chandraprakash, and he's asking, what's 100x VC's outlook on investments in IoT-based consumer and enterprise automation companies?
So if somebody is going to say, I am building IoT-based, I have no business to discuss, right? So there is a thing which we use in our evaluation. It's called so what. When you apply so what to all this kind of products, right? I've built an IoT product. Vision for me. So you need to ask your products, every product. So one example which I always give across, somebody coming and pitching to me as an investor, saying that I have built a 128-bit encryption. Arey bhai, main kya karu? So what, right? I have nothing to do with. Then asking that so what, he will convert that product into a benefit, saying that, it's difficult to hack. Okay, now tell me a solution on that. That's where the product gets converted into business. He will say that, okay, when you are transferring a file from your head office to branch, it is difficult to hack. Now that's where somebody is going to pay you money. So when you are pitching to investors, it's not about IoT product. It's about what problem you are solving, right? So send us a problem. If it's large enough, you have created a great solution, people are going to buy, we will invest.
I think the next question that he's asking or telling, what if we were trying to solve the problem of the hands-free era, which is coming to the hands-free era, where nothing is touched, everything is in a sterile kind of an environment, and IoT products.
So that's what. See, this is the problem. What happens? Please read my blog on how to pitch to VC on an email. Right. This is the challenge. Right. People send out riddles. I'm not here solving riddle. Right. As an investor, what I need is a clear value proposition. Make me understand in a simple way what you are solving, how you are solving, and if there is an interest, I will come back to you. As simple as that. Right? Why are you? So I see a lot of emails which comes and puts me on spot. as an investor, saying that they will write an email. One, they will have no human touch. They will so your basic understanding, this is a broadcast. Hello, or dear investor. Yeah, that's how they will salute. Send you an email saying that, are you interested in a blockchain startup? If yes, then write to me. I'll send a deck. I mean, nobody's going to write to you back. You are supposed to pitch to an investor. Send your pitch properly. Read the blog. Please understand, there are enough. I mean, forget about my blog. If you go Google it, there are enough and more articles telling how do you pitch to a VC and an investor. See, please understand, VC is a 1% business. In my first class 01, where we invested in 20 companies, we had 1982 applications, out of which we invested in 20 companies. And every VC would have the same metrics kind of. So idea is, if you want an attention, if you want to raise money, please understand there is a way and a method to approach across a VC. And people will look at your deals.
And where do they find your blogs, Sanjay? Is there a link?
On index.vc. If you go to, I don't know if Rahul is there and can pull out that blog and paste it in the chat window. It's on 100x where email a VC pitch. It's a blog which is most circulated, So if you go to 100x.vc website and the blog section, it has got a step-by-step, the way, many times people want to have an NDA or will send out some crazy way to log in to look at the pitches. See, when you get a pitch, most of the time an investor will look at your pitch in an email, right? So send a PDF, don't make busy PPT slides or animation. Simple stuff, it's not a rocket science, but those hygiene factors makes you stand out. Create an email body where you mention across which slide number investors should not miss, right? So if a slide number 10 is a very important slide for you, just put that into body, what that slide contains and why investors should read that, 1 slide or 2 slides or 3 slides. That makes an investor an interesting proposition to go through the whole slide. So how do you make them see? An investor, you need to think from an investor's mind, saying that, do I have a fear of missing out? Every investor like me or anybody else, I always worry across, will I miss another Oyo? Will I miss another Flipkart? Is this going to be the next big thing? So everybody will look at your email, but how you get them interested to have the next conversation is going to be important.
On a side note, Sanjay, the average for an investor, a VC or a company makes presentations today is around 4,300, it seems. That's the average number that India is doing currently.
Possible. That's how it should be.
The next sector, before I go to the sector, there's been a side comment on, what do you see with this whole migrant and domestic sector market? How is that going to affect? Sorry, the next question is basically a comment saying that how do domestic workers and migrant workers, the whole labor market, how is that going to affect startups and the working?
It is a tough situation. So most of them were looking across in all this, migrant workers were working in an unorganized sector. So many of them would be drivers, possibly unorganized, or they were filling across the luxuries of the rich, or the so-called upper middle class, doing across construction work. So all this we'll see across difficult times in the cities. But what it will bring as an opportunity is automation. See, all the time, India was the country where any problem or any requirements, we would throw people. You have a problem, throw people to it. You have a problem, throw people to it. That's the only solution which we had. Hire more people because the labor is cheap. Oh, you have theft, hire 2 security guards. But never we will think first saying that, can I make automation? Can I make the entry biometric? Can I do something where I'm able to automate the whole business, hold the entry gates and everything, right? So this is a huge opportunity to create across automation. So that is where I believe there is a huge upside which is getting created across with automation and the technology adoption which is going to happen across.
Thanks, Sanjay. That was a good answer. The next one I think was asked in the previous session before we got on, and a lot of people are pretty insistent. What do you see as the future of agri-tech?
I was not a great proponent of agri-tech. In fact, a couple of my past interviews, if you would see across, I used to think agri-tech as a very slow business, and rightfully so, because there were not enough deals happening, exits were not happening. The business adoption was slow. Buying on technology or automation was slow. But last couple of years, agri-tech has changed drastically. And with the COVID-19 happening, we are of a great belief that agri-tech business is here to boom. There is huge amount of benefits which will get created across in the agri-tech business. So India is set on a great platform because India is an agricultural country, and now automation is reaching to farmers, and we will see a huge sea change happening across on the adoption of technology. So a lot of startups we are looking in class 2 in the agri-tech side.
Okay, that's good news for a lot of agri-tech entrepreneurs and founders. Your favorite one, Sanjay? Deep tech. What's your views on deep tech in India? Are we there? Will COVID kind of accelerate deep tech further?
See, we were great engineers. We create great applications, but we were not a great, I would say, across idea creation or the curiosity on creating something new or a moonshot was little lagging. But last couple of years, I've been seeing huge change in the entrepreneurial mindset and also VC mindset, where people are investing into deep tech. There's good amount of interest which is happening in the enterprise side, where people are investing across in deep tech. So I think deep tech, AI are going to continue the business. The acceleration will remain across. But again, it will depend upon what kind of problem statement you are solving across, and what kind of runway you have as an investment, or who is backing you. See, many times this is one of the points which I like to touch upon most of the time is your lead investor. Who is your first check writer? Who is going to be your lead investor in your deep tech company? Let's say somebody who doesn't understand deep tech and you've raised money from them. They are not going to sell your deal, or they can't help you raise next round of money. It's very difficult. You need to find investors who understand your space, who are able to market your deal to other investors, help you raise the next round. So your importance of lead investor comes in a specific niche areas, which is deep tech is a very niche area where you require a right amount of understanding for a VC to also market the deal, right? So you need to have. In fact, I just had from 100x we have published on YouTube. I think it's live already, which is importance of a lead investor. You just go through that, and you will understand why you should raise your first check from the right investor, because that defines your probability of your success.
So that also segues into the next part. The question is more to do with med devices and as a sector, but the question I think is more about what do you suggest? Do you suggest manufacturing and IP licensing as the way forward for startups, or do you suggest that they should do the full hog of building the product to manufacturing to distribution? How do you see that whole value chain? Where do you think a startup should have its strength in?
So my always take for any startup is, you should have an unfair advantage or a moat. So let's say some startups can have across, a great brand moat where they are out building a great brand. Brands are a great moat, right? People, once they understand the brand value, they start trusting. These are great brands. Or you are creating, an economic moat kind of stuff. So, I mean, there are multiple ways where you can stand out, create an unfair advantage for yourself. And those are the startups where we would like to look across. So if somebody is going to say that, okay, I've got a great idea where I'm going to build another e-commerce store with this 2 new set of increments, right? or for example, I'm going to build a ride hailing cab or a ride sharing cab, but I will have newspapers inside and I will have a cold drink inside. Those are all incremental benefits what you are creating. There is nothing new which you have created or a mode. Nobody is going to invest with those incremental changes. What is that new you are going to build? Educate investors on that. When I see a pitch where I'm getting educated, where I'm learning something, that excites me and I engage with startup founder, right? There has to be something new which you have created across. So that's where I will leave it across, Naveen.
Okay, thanks. There's a question from Rahul. He's asking about retail tech and retail being a large market for SaaS companies. What's your view on that?
Retail is changed drastically. With this COVID-19, it's a huge impact which is happening across. So anything which is discretionary, we'll see across a huge downturn. Retail margins were always less. So the markets, the spend on technology or priority on customer demand generation was always a challenge. The retail side, the way I will see across is, investments in going online, or how do you get that customer journey. So for example, today you have a shop, great shop, you got this inventory. Can you do video live streaming and get your customer to engage before he walks into the shop, he or she walks into the shop, right? So what are the ways that you will engage that customer in a different ways in terms of the tech, where your contact, or you try to make that journey starting from home on their mobile device. So those are the places where retail will work across. We are a big believer in subscription commerce. So future of retail, which we see across, if you are going to send out to retail customers, is going to be on the subscription commerce. So anybody who is building essential delivery businesses on subscription commerce is going to see across huge advantage, right? So how do you build your subscription economy, your lifetime value of customer in the subscription model is going to be valuable.
Thanks, Sanjay. What's your take on esports?
I don't understand that space. My colleague Shashank, while I've invested in one, but I'm not an expert. My colleague Shashank and Vatsal are good in gaming and sports. So I will ask them to write. So in case if you have a deal and pitch on esports gaming, please write to us at pitch@100x.vc. And definitely my team, my colleagues will be able to respond on that.
Thanks, Sanjay. Your take on direct-to-consumer food brands?
A big one. So I'm a bit bullish on that. I believe digital brands are the way for the future. Direct-to-consumer, subscription economy, these are the ways. We are very, very bullish on that. We are welcoming a lot of pitches. In fact, we are evaluating one of them right now to close across on a subscription direct-to-consumer. So we will be happy to look at anything in that space.
So folks, please do keep sending your pitch deck to Alex. The next segue on that question is a very interesting one. Even I myself personally interested. What do you think is the market for alternate meat products in India?
Sorry, come again. Alternate
meat products.
Alternate food products.
Meat. Alternate non-veg meat products.
Oh, okay. Plant foods.
Yeah, plant-based foods. Yes.
Yeah. So plant-based foods are going to be huge. We are very, very upbeat on that. That's going to be the future where we will see across. I think it's a good opportunity to invest. We have evaluated a couple of deals. In India, I believe it's a little ahead of time. Maybe in a year or two, India market would be ready to take on this plant-based meat.
Got it. Your take on, all these housekeeping and security services? I think they're going to see a huge rise.
Sorry, huge?
No, what's your take on all the housekeeping?
Right.
Can you hear me, Sanjay?
Yeah, your voice cracks up, so that's why.
Sorry. What's your take on housekeeping services?
So I think it is So the way I am talking across anything which is going to be automation, right? So today, for example, if you look into the household services also, every part of the household is getting automated, be it across washing clothes, which was washing machines, to cleaning. For example, now vacuum cleaners will fly off the shelf. So anything which is services of that sort at home, we'll see a lot of automation happening across. So maybe we will see across professional cleaning services which would come across and do the household work for a day, and every week they can come across as a subscription. So new business models will emerge.
Thanks, Sanjay. Sanjay, slightly offbeat question. We'll come back to the sector one. What's your take on IP development in India, and what do VCs and investors think about IP?
So there are specific set of founders who are working very closely in developing IP, but these are very limited. I wouldn't say that we have a large chunk of IP creation which is happening in India, but yes, the things are happening across. As an investors, do we see a lot of VCs investing in IP? I don't think so. We are not yet there. We are not a great VC community in India who is investing in IP. Most of us are investing more in businesses, not in terms of IP. Yes, but I would say at least from the whole portfolio perspective, I'm sure each of the VCs would have at least one or two deals in every 20 or 30 portfolio company where they would have strong IP companies.
Have you seen excellent exits in IP companies?
Yes and no. There have been past exits which has been done. See, so look at India, right? Naveen, we have got our big boys, TCS, Infosys, Wipro. They don't buy as what Facebook, Google, Apple does acquisition, right? They all these guys don't work with startups, right? Our big corporate guys, they don't buy IPs. They are still doing that services company. That I think next 4 or 5 years, maybe the time when all these big boys who have got huge amount of cash on their balance sheet, once they start looking at startup as the opportunity. See, if you look into corporate India, they were started looking like Reliance started, Mahindra and Mahindra started, Marico did couple of deals, Pidilite did couple of deals, Hero Motors did couple of deals. There are quite a number of startups from corporates who started writing checks. But we never heard across TCS writing checks or Infosys writing checks or Wipro writing checks. While Wipro has a venture arm, no doubt on that. But Wipro itself, right, acquiring companies in the space, left, right, and center, how Google would be doing. In fact, Wipro is a leader, possibly I would take it across in terms of investing in startups or taking risk. But there is limited, right? The way we see in West, once we start seeing this big IT guys writing across checks to IP companies, we'll see a different India.
Very true, very true. But we've seen some of their multinational brothers and sisters who have bought Indian companies with smart IPs.
Yeah, but still not as great, Naveen.
True, not the level you want.
See, my correlation goes across with the kind of cash what they have on balance sheet, right?
True.
Huge cash.
Very true. So, what's your take on the skill gap training sector post-COVID? There's going to be a huge potential for that.
Yes, that's an emerging sector. Skilling is going to be one of the key drivers. In fact, one of our company in class 1 called Dio.ai, which is into blue-collar worker hiring, they have created the new skilling and upskilling platform. So it's a conversational-based AI platform where vernacular language, blue-collar worker can create their resume, and people can hire blue-collar workers using that platform, and they are creating a complete upskilling program. So it's a big opportunity.
True. And honestly, Sanjay, even we as TiE see that as the next big opportunity, because a lot of people are going to be unemployed at the end of or the other side of COVID, but that also makes them future potential entrepreneurs. So that's where I think we will be having a lot more to play in
Sure.
entrepreneurial refresher courses, training, bringing them up to speed. Next question is on something very interesting. What's your take on home movers kind of a sector? Like companies like Porter, Link, Lalamove. What's going to happen to these kind of companies?
I think in the short term, the demand is going to be less. I don't think so. Sure. So the way I see across this space is going to be very, it's a niche space. So it's not a great, VC investable business, right? You will not see so many startups doing the same and the scale achieving across. And what kind of automation can be built across? What is that unfair advantage? This business has been in existence. What is the new which you can build across around it? We'll have to study that. So I wouldn't say that this is a great space for VC to invest.
Got it. What's your take on adventure tourism, adventure gear market in India? There was a tremendous growth and a rapid growth before COVID.
So that market, it's not going to be, it's going to be fragmented. It's going to be localized. Individual small shops. It's not going to have a very large brand creation. There were enough and more startups which got funded across in this space by VCs. Everybody lost money into that, including me. I lost in one startups. So I don't see this. This will still remain fragmented. Very difficult to homogenize and bring everybody on the same table and try to deliver this as a standardized service. It will remain fragmented.
So there's a question next, Sanjay, which is just a quick question. What's your view on aerospace startups?
My learning over here is very small. So I wouldn't like to comment on this space. And I have invested, this is from the Mehta Ventures family office. We have an investment in a space station. But that's again in US where we have invested through Mehta Ventures family office. In fact, they just got another big round happening with them. And it's a great success story. But I don't have a view on aerospace.
Got it.
We are looking at deals in the space, but personally, do I have an opinion? No.
Got it. So we need an expert actually in that space. And also that space is very much like the pharma space. It's more like, there is a regulatory body and the products and services. If you're an ancillary, especially into the Boeings and the Airbuses, the quality parameters are very, very strict and stringent. I think Hubli was one of the deemed places where they were going to build a park only for manufacturing of aerospace devices and instrumentation and metallurgy for aerospace. It really didn't. But anyway, I think whatever you're thinking of, please do write to us a little more in detail and we'll have it answered. The next question is the big one in the room, Sanjay. What's happening to fintech companies right now? From what I've heard, after several conversations with entrepreneurs, they're all in a limbo mode at the moment. What's your take? What's your views on fintech?
So fintech will continue to flourish. I think this sector will see more adoption, more ways of engagement, right? While today the credit is under stress, right? So banks are under stress. Everything is under. Will this remain forever? No. The liquidity will flow. Governments are taking steps in terms of getting the right stuff done across. But the way the fintech has to now go across is to take this huge, opportunity of, digitization or, adoption of this digital wave to ensure that their credit risk models are rightly defined across. If they are in lending, if they are doing the saving side of it, there should be more alternative assets being presented across. See, today, if you look into it, most of the saving products, be it robo-advisory, everybody's selling the same story, right? Mutual fund, there is nothing new which is getting created across, right? So how do you build that new story? Now, one of the things which has recently been announced is Facebook shops. Now, if you look into the Facebook shops, if they come across the payment side of business, will get badly hit, because they will be bringing across the payments directly on their platform. So how does one use that or mitigate that? So what kind of social evaluations you will do across? So it's going to be very what do you say, specific segment to segment, which is going to emerge across. Fintech in lending. So for example, if you are lending to let's say large corporates, suddenly everybody is under stress, they would start laying off. So how do you work across? But on the reverse, if you are let's say giving loans to the Swiggies and Zomato gig workers, right, small loans, now these guys are flourishing because food deliveries are growing, right? So which is the segment which is going to work for you is going to be very important.
Correct. And I also think that this is almost like demonetization too for the fintech industry. Disrupt again, thinking what's going to come in the next 18 months to 24 months. Right now, I think everybody is in the growth mode, which is why they are taking a pause and trying to see how they can recalibrate their companies. But I'm sure with the kind of stress coming out of this whole thing, there can be some very, very innovative, small quantums of money being invested into a large plethora of assets and things like that. Interesting models are coming out. Moving on, Sanjay, to the next segment. Folks, can I also request you to kind of, make your questions a little more easier for me to understand. I'm not as intellectual as you guys think or hope I am. So there's this question on supply chain orchestration platform with an unfair advantage. Alok, please break it into small, simple segments for me so that I can chew and ask the question. How easy is it to identify PPM, these early stage startups for you?
How easy is to identify?
PPM, personal, private, whatever. The PPM products that are coming out now for COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 era. Are you looking at those products? How?
So we are not looking at anything which is going to be only short term. So anything which is going to be saying that, I'm just solving this COVID problem and, fund kind of stuff. We don't look at that. We are a long-term investors. Our horizon is anywhere around 5 to 7 years minimum. And because this is, again, 100x is a prop capital, so we don't have LPs. So in that sense, we can take a longer term view and want the business to be built across. Again, we are not looking at point solutions for COVID, right? If you have a roadmap saying that beyond COVID, how you will grow your business, how things are going to go across, then we will be happy to look at it. This may be your starting point, but there has to be a roadmap to an overall business, not just a point solution right now.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Your take on automotive services startup?
I see across automotive as a upside. Be it two-wheelers, be it four-wheelers, there's going to be a huge opportunity because public transport is going to be hit big. Ride sharing is going to go down. People want to have their personal security, personal space. So next 3 to 5 years, we'll see across emergence of, so anybody who can't afford four-wheelers will buy two-wheelers, right? But people would want their individual vehicles to travel. In fact, you will see across on the shorter distances, people actually going across in their vehicle, then taking across airlines or railways. So let's say somebody going across even from Mumbai to Indore, they would rather take a car rather than taking a flight. So there will be mindset changes, and this is going to create a lot of those permanent opportunities for automobile sector.
Excellent. That is very refreshing to hear from your end, Sanjay.
No, Naveen, if you look into the SARS data, just go back to the SARS data. I'm just trying to learn from what history is, right? Again, I'm not as intelligent to create my own opinions. I'm just trying to bring inferences and, what others are talking about. And in SARS, China actually after SARS, because of the threat of virus, the automobile market boomed.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, we lost you there. I thought.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, what's your take on pet care, Sanjay?
Pet care is huge. It's going to grow across. We believe that India should see across at least one or two unicorns coming in the pet care side of it very soon. And very soon, which I'm talking is 3 to 5 years. So I would be very bullish on this space.
So, Romit, send your deck immediately. Sudhanshu, your question on co-working spaces. We started off the second segment with co-working, where Sanjay had kind of said that co-working needs to be more innovative, and he gave a good idea of how co-working can be made into like libraries and study rooms for kids who want a break from their houses to go and get their own space to study and read, and they can also become part-time schools. And that's how the capacities can be managed. We'll upload the YouTube. You can hear that answer. So, in short, Sanjay is bullish about co-working spaces. They'll have to recalibrate their business plans. Next is I have a question from Skanda Adiga on what's your take on packaged and ready-to-eat food space, and does 100x VC invest in them?
Yes, we invest. We are bullish. So let me just clear across one. As an 100x.vc, we invest in only Indian companies.
Okay.
So we don't invest anywhere outside of India domiciled companies. We while our companies do sell outside or can do business outside, everything is there, raise money. But we invest in India domiciled startups. We are the first check. We don't do co-investment. We are sector agnostic. We invest into every possible sector. So we are usually diversified, and our capabilities or strength as an investor, while yes, everybody needs capital, is to help our companies raise the next round of funding. The biggest value what we bring to the table is to help startups raise the next round of funding. So I'll just give you a insider benchmark. Between our VC pitch day till our global VC pitch day, we had averagely given 37 investor meeting to all our 20 startups, right? 37 each investor meetings, which we could generate across as a lead. And post global VC pitch day, the second one where we did online and global investors looked at our 100x class one, we got 173 meetings lined up for the total 20 startups. So it has been a great, comforting factor where VCs look 100x as a discovery platform. So coming to your sector, yes, we are very upbeat about packaged foods, because if you can guarantee across safety and a clean, hygienic food rather than a street food, I think everybody would prefer that. So how do you position your food in the coming time? What would you market across is going to be very important.
Thanks, Sanjay. And Skanda, are you from the famous Adigas family in Bangalore, the restaurant chains? If yes, please do ping us. That will help Sanjay in his evaluation much better. The next question is on health and wellness platform. I think Sanjay has kind of partially answered this question by saying yes. So Sanjay, what's your take on wellness platforms?
We are looking at a couple of deals in the mental wellness space. Mm-hmm. We believe it's going to be very, very important in coming times on the mental wellness, with the kind of uncertainty, the life what we are living across. The mental wellness is going to be hugely impacted, and we believe there is going to be a huge upside in that. So we are looking at a couple of deals in the space.
Excellent. Sanjay, your favorite one. In March, India opened up for crypto trading. Do you think there will be an uptake on crypto products in India? And what's your take on its future?
So I'm very bullish on the crypto side. I have personally invested in over a dozen companies in the blockchain crypto space. So I will continue to back across the crypto side of it. One of my portfolio, which is Block.one, which is a unicorn kind of, which runs across the world's largest blockchain operating system called EOS. That is doing phenomenally well. In fact, one of the number one India's crypto exchange, which is called CoinDCX, is again my portfolio. So I've got great companies in the crypto space, which is under my portfolio. So I believe this is going to just rock across. And crypto, I wouldn't see, people have positioned crypto as something negative connotation. It's just one form of financial service. It's again a fintech kind of play, right? So if you start thinking or building a financial services play with underlying technology of blockchain, that's where I think stories can be built around.
True, Sanjay, true. Sanjay, the next question is a kind of an open question to you personally. Are you open to mentor startups, or only do you look at investing? And I think
personally, I have stopped mentoring.
Okay.
My portfolio takes away my time. So, but yes, I have done a couple of mentoring sessions through TiE Mumbai. So if you are a TiE Mumbai, member, in fact, I did across a couple of mentoring sessions where, one-on-one kind of where TiE did across. So yes, I do, but that's not often. But you can reach out to TiE Mumbai if there is a specific query and mentoring required through TiE Mumbai. Happy to engage. And just as a learning, right, for any startup founder, right, if you are deeply in need of mentoring, right, you will find the mentors. I've never seen a challenge where you can't reach a mentor or you are asking for a genuine advice and people don't support across. It's just about how persistent you are in a polite way, and what are the ways that you reach out. So for example, the best way to reach out, I'm just trying to give you insider tips, right? You talk to any of my portfolio company founders, and if they are going to write a mail, I'm going to read it. If you ask Naveen to send out a mail on your behalf, I'm going to read it. TiE Mumbai writing a mail to any mentors within Mumbai or anywhere, they will read it. So idea is, how do you channelize your messaging is going to be very important. And that's where the forums like TiE, makes sense, right? I personally joined, as Naveen introduced me, I joined as an associate member. I mean, I was nobody. As an entrepreneur, I had my dreams, and I learned a lot of things from TiE. And today I'm on TiE Mumbai board, trying to work with these guys. And I've seen my journey from an associate to a charter member to a trustee as a TiE Mumbai board. But everybody can have that journey. It's not just me. So you just need to start somewhere.
Thanks for that, Sanjay. Sanjay, there is next couple of questions which is on the digital economy and stuff. So let me ask you a different question, and let's see how you're going to answer that. What's your take on this whole Facebook investment into Jio? How is that going to impact startups?
So the way I see across is the monopoly of large distributors. So today, for example, likes of Hindustan Lever, right, which is like the number one, or Colgate Palmolive, which is, so a lot of those large big boys who used to command the distribution side, that is set to disrupt with the Facebook Jio. The supply chain is going to set to change with Facebook Jio. So it is going to create a lot of impact for Indian startups. I would say across in a positive way, where startups, if they are able to leverage the reach of Facebook and Jio to promote their product and distribution, it's going to be a big win-win. It's one of the biggest channel which has now opened up for distribution. So somebody asked across, it's a packaged good. Now this is the channel to go about, right? How do you push your wares through Facebook Jio channel, right? So it's going to be a huge advantage, which is going to create today your competition to Hindustan Lever or any big packaged foods would have been tough. But with Facebook Jio, you can be able to do that distribution to the end corners of India.
Interesting take on that, Sanjay. Sanjay, what's your take on tourism post-COVID in India, at least?
I wouldn't say next 24 months are going to be great for hospitality, service sector, into that, hotels, restaurants, tourism. It's not going to be a great opportunity. So the growth is going to be very limited. People are not going to travel across. Things will stabilize once the vaccine is out, once we know that we are no longer prey to this virus, right? And there is enough prevention which has been there. So yes, it's not a great another 24 months for this sector.
Got it. But I'm sure, Sanjay, with your take on how the automotive industry is going to become more personable and personalized, local tourism hotspots are also going to pick up. And I definitely see after 12 months at least, niche, the small Haveli kind of products or products which don't have more than, or properties which don't have more than 5-7 rooms. These niche products and, like your investment, for example, in Away Homes, or I forget the name now, but those are the kind of people who are going to start.
Yeah. So Saffron Stays, for example, is into. So Saffron Stays is a great product, right? Where they give luxurious villas, on rent. So like, I mean, if you want to own a second home, that's, I mean, fancy dream homes, which is available on a per day basis. So those are going to, yes, Saffron Stays is a big success, going to be a big success outcome after COVID. But on an overall sector, if you are going to ask across, it's going to be a lull sector.
Agreed. What's your take on HR tech at the moment?
HR tech will become more and more important. People right now are in a transitionary mode. In uncertain times, people management becomes very, very crucial. And that's where today so what is HR tech, right? If you are just going to be a dumb technology, then very little which can happen across. But if you are going to apply cognitive science to it, good amount of artificial intelligence in terms of, let's assume, how does HR tech qualify, right? If you are going to put across, let's say, health data of an employee, is this going to be a health tech or an employee HR tech, right? So things are going to, the lines are going to get blurred. People are going to see an overlap happening in the space. So there are innovative solutions which are working across, and startups are looking across to leverage across technology at various steps of the HR life cycle.
Got it. Sorry, I'm just looking at the questions here. There's a question from somebody who's asking, is this the same webinar that was held 2 hours back? Answer is yes. We had a, now that the test matches are not there, we had a lunch session, and then we started post lunch session. Abhi tea session ke liye ja rahe hain. What's your view on the last mile fiber connectivity in India, Sanjay?
Yeah, it is going to improve. I mean, I see that, more investments going into that space, digitization happening across. We are already seeing across the disruption in the entertainment side with Jio fiber coming at home. So Jio is taking the lead. So it's going to continue.
Thanks. Your take on water purifier space?
This business is evergreen business, right? Water and air. Mm-hmm. You can't be wrong with that businesses, right? Water, air, food, it's required. People will continue investing into it, and people will buy products. People will buy across various. We never thought in my childhood that I would have a branded water, but today that's the way things work across. And water is branded. We'll see air branded. So it's just going to change the way things are going to happen.
True. There's a question from Rahul asking, what will Anup Mathur be doing in your team? Which sector is he going to be focusing?
Anup Mathur runs across Core Media, which is an IT media company, and he's doing great business, doing a lot of the brand engagement with CIO, CTOs, and the business is flourishing well. And we work together.
Okay, thanks. And what's your view on the models of the gig economy? Do you see that changing, Sanjay?
So gig economy in terms of, the on-demand side of it is going to increase. Hyperlocal businesses are going to increase, see an upside. Wherever there is there is a difference between a gig economy where, you are trying to take a job globally and trying to deliver across over internet. Those are set to improve and, grow across very well. But my take is it's while we have seen that success with a lot of the gig economies like Fiverr of the world, but I am seeing across that gig economy will now start getting more localized. People who are going to do it's going to be a combination where it's a classified kind of a business model plus a gig economy.
Sanjay, the next question I think you've already answered earlier, but there's an interesting one which has come up just now. What's your take on industrial drone, firefighting drone business ideas? Do you look at them?
Yeah, so drone is going to be a good opportunity as the regulations get streamlined. These are all which come under regulation side, right? So as regulations get clearer, more investments will flow across and more predictability will happen across in this business. Yet to see across a clear business model arising out of the drone use kind of stuff, right? So can I start? So what did GPS do as a technology? GPS converted or created the Uber and Olas of the world, right? GPS as a technology created. Now with the drone technology, what are the business models which will emerge, right? So what kind of new businesses can emerge out of drone technologies yet to be seen across? So we need to find entrepreneurs who are going to create that new future using drone technologies.
Got it. Thanks. What's your view on neo-banking? Where do you think banking is going to go now, Sanjay?
I think neo-banking is going to be the next big thing happening across in banking. People would want to have the digital side of it. But one of the blogs which I had written across, especially on the fintech side, is many times I see across the business what startups are trying to do across is about serving the unbanked or underserved. Now that is where my challenge comes across, because these are the customers which are not profitable, and that is why banks are not serving them. Right? All bankers are smart enough to go across for the customers where they can make most money. So if you as a neobank are serving this unbanked or underserved, right? So what is the profitability? If you don't have that metrics, you will have customers but no money. You will be in losses. So banking is not about creating losses.
Excellent. Last few questions. I think we've already crossed an hour now, Sanjay. But a couple of questions coming back to your personality and your investment theses. The question is, do you look at, I think you've answered this question, but again, for the sake of Rahul, do you look at one founder companies and do you think one founder companies has an edge over multiple founder companies, or is vice versa true?
So given a preference, if everything is same, I will go with a team.
Okay.
So my preference will always be a team, because building a company is it's not a, so ideally single founder company, I find them as a Superman, saying that I can do everything. So when there is a team, people hear other voices, including the dissent. So that is where it works across. And one of my presentation slide was Mr. San of SoftBank. Again, that was not a team, right? he used to take a decision, and that's how what we read in media. Not that I know internal dynamics, but what was there was it was a personality-driven fund. It was not a. So today, you name across SoftBank, Sun becomes like a face of it, right? So how do you create a team out of the fund, right? So very similar in startup. It's not a single founder which has to drive everything. It is the team which needs to work upon. While one person can be a leader out of the team who can be driving, taking decision, taking the CEO role, but there has to be a team.
Got it. So Sanjay, I think the last question I'll take, because most of the questions you've answered it in one form or the other. Maybe last two questions. One question, do you see us taking an edge over China in terms of manufacturing, given that there's all sorts of news flying around from US and everywhere else? What's your take on that?
So I think we are doing a wrong comparison.
Okay.
Our ability as an Indian, as a country, is going to be driven through services. We are leader in services, and we should continue working on that. Yes, manufacturing will start emerging as a opportunity, but will we overtake China? I don't think so in next 5 to 7 years, because to build a manufacturing capacity, it requires across huge amount of investments and time, and there needs to have a patient view of at least 5 to 10 years before we can emerge or start even talking about competing with China. So not happening in the next 5 to 10 years. It will happen across if we start seeding the sowing the seeds now, and build the manufacturing facility, the labor laws, the processes to compete with China, maybe in 2030. But will India become a $5 trillion economy? Yes, we are set to go there. Services sector will lead the way, and that's where India has an edge. See, a lot of the platforms like India's Tech, Aadhaar, the new upcoming account aggregator, which is getting launched across. These are all great platforms for startups to leverage and build a lot of services around it. And that's where we'll see India's emergence coming.
Yeah. On that positive note, Sanjay, your words. In fact, a lot of people have asked, what's your advice to startups? If you have 3 things that you want to tell them, what is it?
In the current short-term time, I would always say conserve cash, right? Always have a team, right? So second is team or hire talent, right? These are the best times to hire talent, right? If you can build a team right now, these are the best times to hire talent. Cash, take whatever it is available, right? And the third one is pick your lead investor or your first investor very carefully. Your first investor defines your success. So please find a lead investor who can actually drive you to success.
Thanks, Sanjay. I think that was really, really a great session. We had to do it in 2 parts. But
Sure.
I hope I've asked most of the questions. If I have not, please write to me on the email address I've just sent. I'll try and get most of them answered through Sanjay. And I'm also sure you've made a note of what Sanjay's contacts are. He's constantly evaluating and looking at the deals. Sanjay, I think you can switch on your video now. Let's at least see you and say thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
So folks, please join me in thanking Sanjay. And Sanjay, it was a great session. I think you've been really, really patient in answering all of it. This is one of the few sessions in TiE that where we've been able to get across all the 98% questions. The 2% is because of my inability to understand the question more than anything else. So
happy to work with TiE Mumbai. It has been fantastic. Thank you, Naveen, for hosting. And folks, we are looking at investing right now also for class 2. Do write to us at pitch@100x.vc. The team members are constantly looking at deals. My personal Twitter is @Mehta_Sanjay. 100x Twitter is @100x_VC. We constantly do across sessions with Time Mumbai and 100x live sessions also. Do subscribe to our channel and happy to engage across. Thank you, Naveen, for hosting.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you, Time Mumbai team.
And folks, we are doing a workshop on founder agreement and term sheet with one of Sanjay's close loyal aide in Vipul Mehta. So please look out for that session. These are our upcoming events. And Sanjay used to do it with Vipul himself, but I'll try and see if I can get Sanjay for 10 minutes at least. And these are the upcoming programs that we're having. That again will be an interesting session, especially the workshop, because that will give you an idea of how things are being kind of rewritten during this time in terms of the agreement and terms of conditions of. So folks,
okay.
Have a good dinner if you've not had it, and we'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new day again. Stay positive, stay happy, stay safe. I think you're already used to COVID now. This is the new normal. Thanks a lot, Sanjay. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.